What's up, YouTube? Country Prepper here, and I got another video for you. It's been a little while since I put one out, and that's because we've been getting a lot of tomatoes out of our garden, and we've been making chili sauce and pasta sauce and a lot of salsa. I love salsa. So today I want to talk about some long-term food storage tips, and I got 5 of them for you just to keep the video quick. So let's just get started. First tip would be to stay away from thin plastic containers some foods come in. Best example I can think of is that most people stock up on is peanut butter. And I'm not saying not to buy it. It's a great thing to keep on hand, a good protein source. But try to find it in a glass jar. I know most brands don't come in glass jars anymore. You usually got to go with organic or something like that. But some brands will actually fit inside of a wide mouth quart-sized mason jar, and that's a good way to keep them stored if you like a certain brand. And not all brands will fit. Some of them are just a little too wide, but a lot of them will. So that's a nice little tip that will help you out if your brand happens to fit. So otherwise, you can you don't need to vacuum seal them or anything like that. You can keep them. Put them in another container if you have to have that thin plastic jar that they come in. Believe it or not, mice can chew through that thin of plastic. And of course, if you've ever had a mouse problem at all, they'll take a few little bites and then they'll move on to another. And they'll take a few bites and they'll move on to another. And before you know it, your whole stockpile is ruined. Just out of a few bites from the mice. So that's my first tip for you. Next up, beans. Beans are great for storage. And some of you might think this is a little funny, but it's something you got to think about. How many of you really eat them on a weekly basis? Because when you're down to eating your food storage, if you've got 10 5-gallon buckets full of beans, you're going to be eating them every week. So, and another thing to think about is a lot of people get gas from beans. And so when shit hits the fan, do you really want to be in a house full of people with gas when you probably got all your windows and doors locked? Probably not. Just something to think about there. I know it seems kind of funny, but you really got to think about little things like that. I'd prefer to store more pasta instead, especially because of how many things we store with tomatoes. So that brings me to my next tip, and a lot of pasta. We store a lot, and pasta stores for a long time if it's kept cool and dry. You can actually get up to, I think, 10 years out of spaghetti noodles, as long as you keep them sealed with oxygen absorbers. Your best bet is to vacuum seal them and store them in a bucket, something like that, with like your Mylar bags, or even just vacuum sealing them with the oxygen absorbers inside. Other types of noodles, like macaroni or like the little spirals and stuff like that, they don't keep quite as well because of their shape. It allows too much air in between them. So, but if you think about it, they all taste the same. Noodles are noodles, and when shit hits the fan, you're not going to care if they have an appealing shape for what you're used to cooking them with. So, keep spaghetti. It keeps, a very long time, so you don't have to change it out and buy more quite as often. So, next tip is to really watch what kind of honey you buy. I know a lot of people store honey. We store a lot of honey. We store raw honey. We get it right from the people that keep the bees. If they're out of it, then we get it at our local locker where we buy our meat. They keep the same thing. And but when you're buying honey, look at the ingredients on the back. If you have to buy it at a grocery store, definitely look at the ingredients. If it says anything other than just honey, you don't want it. Other than the fact that if it isn't pure honey, it isn't going to have the health benefits of pure honey that are the main purpose of storing it. So, and it's not going to store very well. Some honey is processed, has refined sugar and other stuff in it that will crystallize, and then it really isn't very healthy for you. Raw honey, and you can usually find that at a farmer's market too. It's the most beneficial, so I'd recommend sticking with that. And it also has a shelf life of forever. Best reason to buy it. So, and you should really look up the health benefits of honey. It can be used as a topical antibiotic, and I mean it's got a ton of health benefits. You should look it up. I'm not gonna name them all for you. So, my last tip actually comes from watching a lot of other videos here on YouTube and of other people's food storage, and I see this mistake quite often, and that is storing food that comes in cardboard packaging, like I don't know, like pancake mix or oats, or I don't know, like dehydrated potatoes. Potato Buds is a brand of them, and now don't get me wrong, it's a great thing to store. But they do need to be repackaged into sealed containers with oxygen absorbers. These types of food draw moisture, which significantly reduces their shelf life. And I mean, most people keep their emergency food, their stores, in a basement or a cellar, something like that, because it stays cooler, and you know, cooler than the rest of the house anyway. And which is smart. But it also stays damper than the rest of the house. And even if you have a dehumidifier in the basement, there could still be enough moisture to affect these kinds of foods. So repackage them. Put them in Mylar bags or vacuum seal them, or you can put them in mason jars and with oxygen absorbers, and they'll keep for a very long time. So that's about it. 5 tips for long-term food storage. Please subscribe to my channel. Check out my website, countryprepper.com. I've got more tips on prepping and survival, and gear reviews, and follow me on Facebook and Twitter. And I appreciate all the feedback and all the support. Thanks a lot. It's Country Prepper. See you next time.